As we talk about this tango between the president, the Trump administration, and many Democratic-run cities, obviously, Chicago continues to come up time and time again. In fact, there are several legal battles right now as it pertains to Operation Midway Blitz in our area, one of them being heard in federal court this week pertains to the conditions at the Broadview ICE processing center that we have talked so much about over the last month and a half. Alexa Van Brunt, the director of the Illinois office at the MacArthur Justice Center, is joining me now after Tuesday's, at times, shocking testimony in federal court. Thank you so much for making time for us today. I think you're on mute right now. Let's see if we can work on that.
Hi, does
okay.
This get better?
Wonderful. Yes, much better. Lawyers are asking for an emergency TRO in this situation to improve the conditions at the Broadview ICE processing center. We are expecting a ruling at 4:15 this afternoon. How do you think this is going to end up?
Well, it's hard to predict how it will end up, but I will say that the judge yesterday indicated that he was taking the evidence in the record very seriously and that he was very disturbed by what he heard. Before we even came to the hearing yesterday, we had put in the record 36 declarations from people who had been detained at Broadview and their lawyers, attesting to the horrific conditions and the total blackout on attorney-client communications at the facility. It really has become a black site. There is no one allowed in for inspections, including members of Congress who also provided declarations in the case. And the judge had read all of those declarations. That was very clear. He cited to them frequently. And then the people who actually took the stand yesterday, witnesses who included attorneys, who included people who had recently been at the facility, and who included the named plaintiffs who were just there a couple days ago, spoke the same truth that everyone has been speaking. The horrible overcrowding, the lack of food, the lack of water, the absolute degradation and lack of care, the forced signing of forms, waiving rights, all of that came out on the stand yesterday. And it was clear that the judge was disturbed. I think everybody in the courtroom should have been disturbed by what they heard taking place in a facility right outside Chicago today. And we hope that today the judge rules to restrict the use of these conditions and to allow attorneys into that facility as soon as possible.
There's this question of if that ruling goes into effect, how do you think this ruling would then fundamentally change moving forward how immigration cases are handled in our state?
Well, what's so interesting about this is that Broadview didn't used to be run in this manner. It used to comply with basic human rights. It used to be that people were kept there about 12 hours and then moved out to another facility. People could access lawyers there. There are attorney visitation rooms in the facility that previously were used. Congressional members used to be able to inspect it regularly as part of their oversight authority. What's happening now is a total sea change. So to say that immigration enforcement will be impossible if the defendants have to abide by basic constitutional standards like due process, it is really a fallacy. What will happen is that people will have their rights protected. The defendants have no end of resources by virtue of the big, beautiful bill that was passed to affect their immigration plan. There is no reason that they cannot protect the very basic human rights of the people they are taking into custody. And just because they want to deport people faster does not mean they can trample on basic human rights to do that.
Yeah, you mentioned the fact that the Broadview ICE Processing Center has been there for quite some time, for years.
Yeah.
What is it that you think is bringing it to this level where now there's litigation involved at this point in time? I mean, have you all ever had to join any litigation before where it comes to this processing center? Or what is happening now that's getting it to that level?
Yeah, this is a crisis completely of the defendant's own making, of ICE's own making, of DHS's own making. And it's due to a couple different things. One, the massively ramped up enforcement in the Chicago area. The huge number of arrests that have taken place since Operation Midway Blitz went into effect. We heard on Halloween it's up to 3,000 arrests in the Chicago area. And according to the defendants in the lawsuit, it's not ending anytime soon. So there's so many people coming through this facility as a result of that. They've also implemented under this administration a policy of mandatory detention, which has never been in place before. So people are not getting bond. They're not allowed to be released while they litigate their immigration case. So that's resulting in a huge number of people being detained as well. And when you shut off lawyers from sites like Broadview, people cannot file habeas petitions. They cannot seek relief even when they're entitled to it. So people who should not have been arrested in the first place, people who have asylum, people with deferred action, they're getting caught up, arrested, detained, and even deported without any process. So all of that is a result of the defendant's intentional actions in the state of Illinois, and particularly in Chicagoland.
Yeah, I want to break down the allegations a little bit further. You mentioned them, but let's kind of go one at a time.
Sure.
I'll start with the signing away rights, essentially, without counsel. Yeah. Many of these people don't speak English and don't read it.
Right. They don't, and we're trying to find more information out about what's happening. You know, it's a black box in Broadview, so it's a little unclear exactly what's going on, but we have heard from people inside and their lawyers that people are being coerced or tricked into signing voluntary departure forms, I-211 forms, it seems, in which case they are whisked outside the country without any process or without ever seeing a judge. And we think that is done in a coercive manner, and that needs to stop. So we are definitely going to be monitoring that closely through the discovery process.
Yeah, and then there's the aspect of this that seems to have a lot of protesters coming out week after week that, okay, it's the ICE processing center, but people are being held there for extended periods of time.
Right, so it is a processing center, not a detention center. Detention centers aren't allowed in Illinois. Processing centers are supposed to be for holding people for about 12 hours. So really a way station someplace else. And as the judge said yesterday, that's not what this is. This is a prison. People are staying here for days at a time, sometimes weeks at a time, overnight, even though there are no overnight facilities. So what we're talking about is a de facto detention center. And I think the protests are completely appropriate, given the fact that people are sleeping scrunched together on concrete floors without bathing facilities, heads near toilets, all the harrowing details you heard yesterday in court.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so let's say the judge rules in you all's favor. If no one is being allowed in to inspect, how do things change?
Well, no one's being allowed yet. The judge did say, you know, we could reserve that issue. I think a lot is going to come down to discovery. We have a motion for expedited discovery on the docket, and the judge seemed interested in surveillance footage, getting a look at what's going on inside the facility. That's been a big part of the litigation in the protester litigation that's also going on in the Northern District is seeing video footage of what agents are doing on the ground. And I think it'll be just as important here. And also we'll be asking for documentation. We'll want to find out what kind of supplies are coming in into the facility, what kind of medical care, if any, is being provided. We don't think there's any. And so we'll just really be conducting a fuller investigation than we've been able to do so far now that we have the case on file.
Is there anything that's like built-in accountability that's being addressed in this suit?
Well, I think the judge is the accountability, and he is taking this so seriously and is very experienced in prison and jail cases and conditions cases like this. And so the accountability is the court. This judicial branch is so important in checking the actions of the executive branch in this administration in particular, because they've been trying to act with impunity and they cannot. So we believe there is going to be a real check on accountability, and we intend to also play a huge part in discovery and in holding the defendants to account in this case.
All goes back to checks and balances. Again, we are expecting a ruling in this case at 4:15. Alexa, thank you so much for your time and sharing with us today.
Thank you so much. Yep, take care.